So let's start that over. All school food authorities participating in the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program are required to complete an annual renewal application at the beginning of every school year. The purpose of the application is to continue the SFA single permanent agreement between LDOE and the SFA. It is also a tool that we use at the state agency to collect the annual program specific information. So, the CNP website with the application will open this week for all SFA sponsors to complete their 24-25 application. Our IT team is doing a few little extra little things today, but they said by the end of the week it should be open. We will definitely notify you once it is open, and the forms are found on the CNP website. And the deadline for submitting this year's application will be Friday, August 30th. And all SFAs must complete this annual renewal application by the deadline. That's very important that you complete it by this August 30th deadline. So let's start with the basics. So to access the application, you need to log in to the CNP website. You got to enter in your login name and password and then click on the login button. So once you're logged into the website, you will see the home page and you're going to click on the school food service green tab on the top of the screen. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to click on the forms in that green shaded area. So during this webinar, we're going to cover all areas of the application. But when you're starting to complete the application, and if you need any additional assistance or you have questions along the way, you can always contact us here at the state agency. Just note that some information on some of the forms within the application will populate into other forms. So it is important that you complete them in the following order. So the required online forms are as follows. You're going to have requirements first, then your policy checklist, Schedule A, collection procedures, collection officials, and then the income and expense. And you will notice that we do have a couple of other things on that list, but as we go through the presentation, I will tell you which ones you do not need to worry about and which ones you have to do. So, first up, right under requirements, SFAs do not complete the waivers as we currently do not have any waivers available. So the first section you're going to complete is the requirement sections. So the requirement form consists of 4 sections. All 4 sections of this form must be completed by either the head of the organization or the authorized representative for the SFA before you can do anything else. So to check to see who is listed as the authorized rep, you can follow these steps. So you go to CNP site and then you click on the authorized representative contacts under that green tab on the left-hand side. So the first part of the requirements is called the CNP Permanent Agreement Acknowledgement. So you will type in I agree and then enter the user ID and password. So the user ID and password entered must belong to the authorized representative of the organization. The next one is the program year agreement. And again, you will type in I agree and then you will enter in your username and password. And again, that must be the authorized representative's user name, user ID and password. The next part of the requirements is the SAM.gov verification. So, to participate in any child nutrition program, the sponsoring organization must provide documentation showing that they have a unique ID number associated with their SAM.gov registration. The unique ID number typed must match the number that was previously sent to LDOE by your organization. If the two numbers do not match, you will get an error message, and the error will prevent the sponsor from completing this part of the application. So the way you check your sam.gov to make sure the two numbers are going to match, you follow the steps. You go to the CMP website, and then you're going to click on the home, that gray home tab in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And then under administration on the left-hand side, click on sponsors and then sponsor info. And so now on this screen, you're going to see the SAM ID or the SAM Gov UID that's listed, that's on our website that we have. So this information on the screen can only be changed by the state agency. So if something doesn't look right or it's not correct, you need to contact us because this is what we have in our system. And then the last part of the requirements is the CN data sharing agreement. So once again, you will type in I agree, and then you will enter in the user ID and password. And again, this must be the authorized representative's user ID and password. So once all the requirements have been completed, there will be a check mark next to each of the requirement with the date and name of the person that completed it, and the status will then show complete at the top. So that's it for the requirements section. So the next section is the policy checklist. So the policy checklist is a list of the essential policies and current year prototype forms. For continuing SFAs, it will be used to renew the agreement with LDOE for participation in the school food service programs. So the first question is the program pricing or non-pricing? So SFAs will select from either pricing, non-pricing, or both pricing and non-pricing. So some examples, RCCIs with no day students would choose non-pricing. RCCIs with day students would select both pricing and non-pricing. All SFAs that process meal applications, meaning that they do not participate in CEP, will select pricing. And then SFAs that participate in CEP system-wide will select non-pricing. But then you have those SFAs that partially participate in CEP. In that case, they would select both pricing and non-pricing. So question 2 is about the public release. So this section is required for all SFAs that are pricing and both pricing and non-pricing. This question can be left blank if the SFA is non-pricing only. The SFA will also indicate if they are using the most recent prototype provided by the state. You just put a check in that box. So question 3 is about the income eligibility guidelines for free and reduced meals. And this question is required for all SFAs. And again, in this section, the SFA will indicate if they are using the most recent prototype provided by the state. Question 4 is the free and reduced price meal documents. Section is required for pricing and both pricing and non-pricing SFAs. So a selection is required for all parts A through D. And this question can be left blank if the SFA is non-pricing only. And the questions are basically trying to see if you use a scannable application, if you use a prototype, how the meal applications are distributed, and how those meal applications are returned. Question 5 is about menu options. It is required for all SFAs. However, there is nothing that needs to be checked or marked off in this section. So upon submission, the SFA is agreeing that the meal types are accurately identified on the Schedule A for each site, And the meal requirements for breakfast, lunch, and after school snack follow the USDA regulations. So you're basically certifying that you are following what you're supposed to be doing. But again, there is nothing you actually need to do for question 5. Question 6 is about audit requirements. So this is also required for all SFAs. So Part A is regarding receiving more than $750,000 in federal funds. So you will answer yes or no. In Part B, if Part A is yes, then Part B should also be yes. In Part C, all SFAs must provide the most recent financial period that has ended. And then in Part D, to be completed if the SFA does business under a different name. So next up is the Schedule A, and that's besides the income and expense report, this is the most comprehensive part of the application. It gives us the most information. So the Schedule A consists of 5 parts: the sponsor meal info, documents and certifications, site participation list, site meal info, and severe need eligibility. So the sponsor meal info contains several sections: the average meal costs, the student breakfast and lunch charges, other meal charges, after school snack charges, food service management company contracts, a section just for RCCIs, the software use, paid lunch equity, and CEP participation. And we will go through each of those sections next. Okay, so average meal costs. So on this screen, even though we have zeros, the 2023 school year average meal cost will auto-populate from the prior year application. You as the SFA will need to enter in the 2024 school year average meal costs. So the prior year average meal cost is the average cost to produce a meal by meal type. So please use that average meal cost tool that can be found on the CMP website to calculate the average meal cost. And you can also refer to the previous training slides and recording on how to complete the average meal cost tool. So again, you will not be able to change what's in the numbers that are in 2023, but you will have to enter in numbers that are in 2024. And as we're reviewing, if we see those numbers have not changed, that they're exactly the same, you will be contacted because that is never the same as previous year. The next section is the student breakfast, student lunch, and other meal and after school snack charges. So in this section, you're going to enter in the student breakfast charges, the student lunch charges, and other meal charges such as your employee and act cost, as well as the after snack meal charges. So for the reduced price meals, you can refer back to the House Bill 1 that contains the appropriation for House Bill 282. That was the bill that was signed into law on June 29th of 2023. So in this section, if you have reduced meals, you won't be charging them, so you will be putting 0 for the prices. For your after school snack, if you are participating or operating an after school snack and you're a system-wide CEP or RCCI, you can leave those sections as zeros and provide the at cost charge only price. And the at cost snack charge must be no less than the current year free federal reimbursement rate for snacks. So in the next section, if you contract with a food service management company, please enter in each contract. Only charter SFAs that use a food service management company need to report this information. And each company in use should be reported with the duration of the contract, like a time frame of 1 year. And the next section is only for RCCIs, and they have some flexibility when multiple grade groups are in place. So RCCIs need to select yes if using a large grade group maximum allowed portions like for 9 to 12 for all grade levels. And the next section is the software use. So all SFAs must answer this section. If an electronic software system is used for point of service or for meal applications, the SFA must indicate the name of the software here. So the paid lunch equity exemption. So this section is also required for all SFAs. Um, just as a reminder, the exempt SFAs include SFAs that are system-wide CEP, or RCCI with no day students, or SFAs with a positive or zero balance in the nonprofit school food service account as of June 30th, 2023. A dollar amount must be entered in if you select exempt, positive, or zero balance. So the system will allow, if you have a zero balance, you can put zero. If not, you need to put the actual balance in there if you have a positive or zero balance. And if you need more information about the paid lunch equity, the guidance and the tool can be found also on the CNP website. So in the next section, the SFA will choose if participating in CEP district-wide or not district-wide, or you're not participating. So you just choose from those three options from the drop-down box. Okay, the next section is the documents and certification, and it includes the SAM.gov registration again, the unpaid meal charge policies and document, the SFA's procurement code of conduct certification and document, the SFA procurement procedure certification and document. We have a new section, the SFA's higher threshold certification and document, the wellness policy certification, as well as the HACCP certification. And we'll go through each of those. So for the SAM.gov registration, again, in this section, SFAs will enter in the SAM.gov ID and enter in the actual expiration date. The SFA will also need to attach the proof the registration is in good standing. So please check to make sure the document that you attach shows an active date, because if it's expired, the application cannot be processed until a new document is received. So under requirements, you're just putting the ID. Here, you're putting the ID, the expiration date, and actually attaching the proof that the registration is in good standing. The next section, for the unpaid meal charge policy, the SFA procurement code of conduct, procurement procedures, and those three sections, you're going to select yes or no, saying that you have it or you don't have it. And just to note, you're just certifying that you have these documents. You're not actually submitting these documents to LDOE. However, when people come on site, either for review or technical assistance, etc., we can check for these. So please make sure that if you select yes, that you actually have these, because you are required to have these. All right, so this is the new sections about the SFA higher threshold certifications. So for this section, you will choose no to decline using the higher threshold for micro purchases, or yes if you want to use the higher threshold. We actually have the memo linked on this slide for more information. We talked about this in some monthly calls. If the SFA chooses yes, that they want to use that higher threshold, then they have to choose what option they qualify for. And like I said before, we have the memo, the USDA memo tagged here, linked here, so you can click on it. Um, that way, if you need to refer to the different options that you qualify for, you can refer to it here. And on the next slide, we'll kind of go over the next steps if you choose yes. So as stated in the memo that's linked, program operators choosing to self-certify must prepare and include a justification for that choice. The self-certification must also include a justification, a clear indication of the threshold, and supporting documentation of any of the following. So one of the qualifications is if you qualify as a low risk auditee, and that's actually with Regulation 2 CFR 200.520. Or you can qualify because you have an annual internal institutional risk assessment to identify, mitigate, and manage financial risk. Or the third way to qualify is for public institutions, a higher threshold consistent with state law. So in this section, if the SFA chooses one of the yes options, they must provide the threshold, which Louisiana, the max is $30,000, as well as that justification and supporting documentation. So, for example, if you chose the qualification as a low risk auditee, you would need to attach the proof of that low risk, showing that proof. But as a reminder, Louisiana does have a state law for higher threshold. So if the SFA chooses the third option, the LDOE memo, which is memo SFS 22-183, it has already been attached in the document of the application. As stated on that USDA memo, this option would be for public institutions only. So if you're wanting to use that higher micro purchase threshold of up to $30,000 versus 10, you have to self-certify and you have to complete this section. And you need to make sure that if you are using that higher threshold, that it matches what you have in your procurement plan. And then for the wellness policy and HACCP, again, you will select yes or no for each to show that you are certifying that you have these documents. Okay, next up is the site participation list. And this will be the list of all the sites within the SFA. All current active sites will have a green check mark. Any inactive sites will have a red X. And at the bottom of the list, there will be a total of active and inactive. The list will also include the site codes, the kitchen manager, the operating days, the meals served, and meal service information that was entered in for each site and the site meal info on the Schedule 8, which is the next part that we'll go over. So it's going to populate into this list for you. So under the site meal info for this site, you will provide the site name, or actually the site name, address, site code, all that data will already be in there for you. It's also going to provide the site is eligible for free snack and severe need breakfast. And you will need to check the box if for some reason this site will not be participating. All right, this is also a new section. So the site meal info section and it's called operating at multiple locations. And as I stated, this is new. So the question is, does this site operate at more than one location? And this is when you have one site name, but more than one physical location. And we had this issue arise when conducting some administrative reviews where a site was chosen for a review. And when the reviewer came on site or was collecting the offsite documents, there was actually another physical site location that we were not aware of. So USDA is requiring that we add something to catch these extra sites. In this scenario, the SFA will need to enter in the additional location details, which includes the school name, the address and city, parish, and grade levels at that particular location. So in the next section, you're going to enter in the kitchen manager name for each site. Um, The SFA will certify that the manager meets all the state requirements to work as a manager in food service operation and has been adequately trained and is competent in all USDA program requirements, including but not limited to all of those items that are listed. Um, with Bulletin 1196 being no longer, you're not necessarily required to be a certified manager. However, we do still offer the manager training courses. That's really good and covers pretty much everything on this list. However, you can do your own trainings, but as long as these managers are trained in all these items, you can certify that they're meeting all the requirements. In the next section, if it's not already selected for you, you will choose the congressional district and the Bessie district, and you will also enter in the number of operating days. Okay, so SFAs are now required to enter in the school operating hours. This was previously optional, but now it's required as a mandatory that you put those times in from the beginning and the end. This next section about expanded learning is only for SFAs operating that expanded learning time. And this section will be used to determine if snacks can be served before the end of the school day. But as a reminder, you must operate a minimum of 7 hours of instruction time, not the operating hours of instruction time, in order to qualify for that expanded learning. And we have a couple of memos that were released, some previous memos. It was SFS 22-171 and SFS 23-137 for more information on after school snacks operating expanded learning. So you're going to check that box if you're choosing to use that expanded learning time. If you qualify, you are checking off that box certifying that you operate that expanded learning program and that you do operate a minimum of 7 hours of instruction time in a normal day. And we will be checking for this. So, under the special circumstances section, this is if a school has a child daycare or is a RCCI, then you're going to select that appropriate type and you're going to select the age range. And then under the accredited school type, the accredited school type for this school is going to be determined by lead system. So SFAs cannot edit this information. However, if you feel there's an error with that age grade range, that grade range, please contact us so we can see if we can get that corrected. Okay, next up is the meal participation section. So under this section, you're going to click on the check boxes below to select the child nutrition program the site anticipates participating in for the 24-25 school year. If the site is eligible to participate in severe need breakfast, the checkbox will be enabled. Otherwise, it is disabled and cannot be selected. So if you do not qualify for severe need breakfast, you will not be able to check that box. You will enter in the number of estimated students to be served for each meal service and select the time the meal starts. And if the site has multiple meal shifts, be sure to input that information into shift 1, 2, 3, and even 4 if you have to. If this site does not have multiple shifts, you enter all the data into shift 1. You will then enter in the time the meal ends. As a reminder, per regulations, breakfast should be served near the beginning of the day, and lunch meal service must occur between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Choose the collection procedure for each program, which we'll be going over shortly of the different collection procedures. But please note to make sure that if you choose to implement the after school snack program, that you choose the type of enrichment activity at that site. After school snacks must be served after the school day has ended unless you qualify for the expanded learning time, which SFAs would need to certify in the section above. Under the offer versus serve section, the SFAs will select if they participate in offer versus serve for breakfast and lunch. SFAs will answer if the staff have been trained, and the date of the training will need to be entered. Please note that offer versus serve training must take place before the start of operation. So, under the attendance factor section, there is nothing that SFAs need to complete in this section. It does include the state attendance factor. We did release a memo, but it's also going to be in the application. The school year 24-25 state attendance factor is 92.38%. And unless a custom attendance factor is requested by the SFA, the default will be the state's currently approved attendance factor, with the exceptions of RCCIs, which will have the attendance factor set at 100%. SFAs may use the annually determined state attendance factor or may calculate a custom attendance factor. If an SFA wishes to utilize a custom attendance factor, the attendance factor form must be completed. This form can be found on the CMP website under the General School Food Service Forms. But as a reminder with this, please make sure to update the attendance factor in your software systems in your school districts. So for the meal service section and the mobile meal preparation, so for the meal food service section, you're going to select the correct meal service option for the site. So whether you're contracted with a food service management company, whether you as a sponsor prepares the meal, whether you have a joint agreement with another SFA, or you have a vendor, your prepared meals are provided by a vendor. And then under the mobile meal participation, you will select any of the things that you participate in. So if you do breakfast in the classroom, breakfast on the bus, grab and go, or any other type, you can put that in that as well, and you can select as many as you need to. So for severe need eligibility, this section lists all the schools for the School Food Authority with eligibility based on the student lunches served in, in the second preceding year of 2023. In the eligibility column, a Y is eligible and an N is not eligible. In the checked in Schedule A column, a green check means the site was marked in the current Schedule A as interested in participating in severe need breakfast for the upcoming program year. And normally on this is just the top of the columns, but you would actually see all of your schools listed with the Y or the N. Okay, next up is collection procedure. So the collection procedure forms allows you to create multiple point of service collection procedures. It also allows you to provide details about the procedure and designates the schools or facilities that use them. The initial page is a list of all the existing procedures you have for each meal, breakfast, lunch, and snack. This list does not contain any procedures until you create them, allowing you to create as many or as few as you need. However, each meal service must be assigned at least one collection procedure to each meal service for each site submitted in the Schedule A. So, where you were putting in all your information about your meal service times and the number of kids, that is where you're going to have a drop down box and you're going to select what collection procedure you are using. The procedure must describe how and where a site counts each reimbursable meal, the collection of funds, and the location of the point of service. Also, the number of collection procedures can vary. It can vary in your district based on the following, whether you're CEP versus a non-CEP site, the meal service at each site, depending if you're doing breakfast, lunch, and snack, the complexity of your point of service, and also whether the site has alternate meal service options such as breakfast in the classroom. So your point of service for your breakfast in your classroom may be different for your cafeteria meal service. Now, collection procedures do roll over from year to year, and SFAs can submit the same procedures used in the previous year if no updates are required, as well as create new or edit existing procedures. And I really highly encourage everyone to look at your current collection procedures to make sure you don't need to edit anything because some people still have things from back when COVID, and you really need to update those collection procedures. So, if you need to add a collection procedure, you will click on the Add button. And after adding the collection procedure, the pop-up box window will appear, and then you answer those questions, and then you click Save. So the next section is collection officials. So the collection officials form consists of one page, and this is where the user will provide the information on the determining official, the pre-verifying official, the verifying official, and the hearing official. And if you designate kitchen managers for each site to be the determining official, then you can just check off that box at the top. So here's a chart of some reminders about the collection officials, and I'll kind of run through it rather quickly. So the determining official can be more than one person. And this is the person that checks the meal applications for completeness and also assigns and records the free, reduced, or paid status on the application. So then the pre-verifying official can be more than one person. It cannot be the determining official. It can be the software system. It confirms accuracy of the original free, reduced, or paid status on the application that is selected for verification. The verifying official can also be more than one person. It can be the determining or the pre-verifying official, but it can't be all three. And this person completes the annual verification process. And then the hearing official is generally only one person. It cannot be the determining official or the pre-verifying official, and it cannot be involved in any way with the approval of the verification of applications. And this is usually like your CEO, CFO, or superintendent because they hear any appeals resulting from the verification process. So, in the past, probably 2 or 3 years ago, you had to complete labor expenses. You no longer have to complete the labor expenses section. So, the next thing is the income and expense. So, the income and expense report will look slightly different from previous years. However, the forms consist of the same information with a couple of extra things in it. So the income and expense form consists of page 1, which is the income and reimbursement. Page 2AB is the expenses, which is your foods, use, and labors and benefits. And page 2CDE is the equipment, other direct costs, and indirect costs. Page 3 is your net cash resources on June 30th. Page 4 is an allowable operating balance, and then you have a review section as well as a print where you can print the page. The information entered on this form is from the previous school year. So SFAs are entering income and expenses from the 23-24 school year. This is the only form that you will be entering the prior year's information. The rest of the forms will be what you are doing for the 24-25 school year. So in the income and expense report, you enter the dollar value as reported on your system's report. Do not use dollar signs or commas. Text boxes that are grayed out cannot be edited. And because these fields have been populated from other forms. The computer will calculate all values into the total column, so those will be grayed out. And note, please refer to the Louisiana Accounting and Uniform Governmental Handbook, also called the LAF manual, for more information on the income and expense codes that are used in this form. And we'll go over each section. So on page 1 is the income. Item 1A is the prior year end of year balance. So you're going to enter in that prior year end of year balance. In item 1B, the total federal reimbursements, this is going to be the reflects the reimbursement received from NSLP, SBP, and after school snack over the past year, so July 1 through June 30th. And if the SFA participated in SSO, those reimbursements should also be included since it's an extension of NSLP, and that should all be included in your claims. However, you do not include any reimbursements for summer food service program or CACFP reimbursements. Also under 1B is USDA cash in lieu of commodities. So you're going to enter the amount you receive cash in lieu of commodities if you do. We only have, I think, 2 districts to do that. So most of you will not have amounts in that column. And then this is a new section, Supply Chain Assistance Fund. You need to enter in the amount of the SCA funds that you received during the 4th round of SCA funds. That's were received in November of 2023, so that was included in last school year. And then we added a section for equipment grant funds. So you're going to enter in the amount received in the equipment grant funds that you may have received during the 23-24 school year if you received equipment grant funds. So if you're unsure of if you have the correct amount of reimbursements, to check the amount reported for that total federal reimbursement, if you go to the CNP website and you click claims on those on the left-hand side in the green side, and then you click on view claims. And then you're going to use that drop-down box to access the prior year. So you're going to click on 2024. And then you're going to click on the last claim file, which is usually going to be May or June. Most people finished in May, but if you operate at SSO, you should have a June claim. And again, like I said, this will include your SSO claim in here. And then you're going to click on the Review tab. And at the bottom, you're going to look for the total amount paid in program year 2024. And this amount is the amount that should be entered for total federal reimbursement. This amount cannot change. It has to match what is in the system. If it is different, the reviewer will be contacting you to let you know that we have to change it to the correct amount that is in our system. Okay, also on page 1 of the income, 1C is the payment for meals. 1D is the income from extra sales. 1E is state funds, and the only thing that we added compared to previous year was that we added a section for the state reimbursement for House Bill 1, Act 305. 1F is any transfers in that you receive from the general fund that will not be paid back. 1G is other income. And then the 1H will be the total income and reimbursement, which will be auto-populated based off of the numbers you put in 1A through G. And then 1I is the value of USDA donated commodities. And then again, the last one, the total income reimbursement and values will be auto-populated based off of what you put in for H and I. So for the expenses section, they are split between 2 pages. One page is page 2AB and the other is page 2CDE. Only purchases made with the school food service funds should be documented in this form. Purchases made for school food service with other funds should not be reported. So on page 2AB, you're going to enter in 2A is going to be food used. So you're going to put purchased foods and the USDA donated foods. So on page 1 for the income, you reported the value of the USDA commodities received to be used. And on this page, you're going to report the portion of the USDA donated commodities that you actually used. And then on 2B, you're going to enter an amount for each applicable line item for labor and benefits. Then on expenses, page 2C, D, and E, that is equipment, other direct costs, and indirect costs. And again, you in those sections, you're going to enter in any amount in each applicable line item. And then 2F is your total expenses. Important thing to note here is that you need to compare your total expenses reported in that total expenses line item, so 2F, to compare it to the total income reported on page 1, and that's 1K, because your total income must be equal to or greater than your total expenses. So if your expenses exceed your income, you need some other type of transfer in. We're going to be looking for that. If you have more expenses than income, we will be contacting you to make corrections to that income and expense report because you cannot operate in a negative. Page 3 is the net cash resources. Excuse me. On June 30th, RCCIs do not complete this portion of the form. You can leave it at zeros. And in this section, you will enter in the amount in the line items that are applicable to you. And again, net cash resources can be listed as zero if necessary. So page 4 is the allowable operating balance. Again, RCCIs do not complete this portion of the form. The CNP site will calculate and populates this information. The CNP website determines if a corrective action plan is needed. And a corrective action plan is needed if the net cash resources exceed the calculated 3-month average expenses. The corrective action plan should also include how, when the funds will be used, and then make sure that it's allowable purchases. So here's a little bit different than it was previously. So as I said before, the CNP website determines if a correction action plan is needed. The excess net cash resources amount will be listed. If a correction action plan is needed, rather than attaching a spend down form like you did in previous years, SFAs will now be entering in the spend down plan into the application. So to begin, you click on the add item and to enter the estimated cost to spend that excess cash down. So what you're going to do is you're going to add the item description, the unit, the estimated cost, and the time frame. And as you add items, that amount of the excess remaining will begin to decrease. And then you're going to continue to add items until the excess remaining amount reaches zero. If there's no spending plan items are entered, there will be an error message on the submit form page stating that the spending plan has not been provided. And if there are items, but the estimated cost do not cover the total amount of excess cash that you need to spend down, you will also get another error message saying that excess remaining is greater than zero. So no, that's a little different, but it'll all be in one place for you. So for menu certification section, only new SFAs need to complete this section. So if you are a new SFA just coming on, you will have to complete the menu certification section in addition to the rest of the application. Everyone else that is already an existing SFA does not need to worry about completing the menu certification section. And then after completing each of the forms, you will go to the submit form section. So all the forms you have started will appear on the list. If the checkbox next to the form is enabled, you can submit the form by clicking the box next to the form. A green check will appear. If an error message appears and the box is disabled, like you can't click on it, this form is not ready for submission. You will see the message at the bottom of the screen saying submission of the NSLP form is not permitted at this time, and a list of items that remain to be completed will appear under the respective form name. If the form must be completed for each school facility, Items that remain to be completed will also be listed by site. If you still receive submission of NSLP form is not permitted at this time message, and you have checked all the boxes for the forms listed, then you have not, that means you possibly did not start a required form. Forms only appear in the list after they have been started. You must go back and complete the forms that you did not start. And here's a screenshot of an application that's not permitted at this time, can't be submitted because of missing information, which is a lot. It was just a application that I clicked on just to show you what it would look like. Just make sure that when you're going through the submit, when you're trying to submit forms, that you click on all the check boxes next to the forms that need to be submitted, and then you hit submit. After you submit it, LDOE nutrition support staff, or it will be assigned to one of the staff members. They will review the application for completeness. We will be contacting you if changes are updated or needed. So after the application is complete, we will approve it, and then an approval letter will be sent to the superintendent and the authorized representative via email. But please note that the application does go through 3 levels of reviewers, so sometimes it could take up to a couple of weeks to process and receive an approval from us, especially if you're a larger SFA or if we have a lot of questions or a lot of edits that we have to make. That is why it is important that SFAs submit the application by the due date to allow time for us to process and approve. And as a reminder, SFAs cannot submit any claims until the application is approved. So make sure you try to get it in as, not say as fast as possible, but as soon as you possibly can submit something correct to us. That way it's less back and forth that we have. And then once you get that approval, if you need to make any additional changes, you can always submit a revision later on. But please, please, please try to adhere to that August 30th deadline. And with that, that's all I have. I will check the chat box to see if we have any questions. I do know we went kind of fast through certain sections, but not a lot has changed from year to year. Alicia Thibodeau, I am not sure what SFA you are with, but if you please would contact us directly, sending an email to the general email address, we can help walk you through it. And CC, yes, it will be the same for non-public. Okay, at this time, I am not seeing any other questions in the chat box. You can always email us at childnutritionprograms@la.gov, or you can give us a call at 225-342-9661. And again, we're hoping by the end of this week, possibly within the next day, to have the application up and running so that you can start submitting. We will more than likely submit a blast email memo to let you know that the application is open. That way you can go in and start working on it. And again, please adhere to that deadline of August 30th. It's a Friday, August 30th, so that you give us time to process and you'll be able to submit that August claim. So with that, I hope everyone has a good rest of their afternoon and a good rest of their week, and we look forward to start getting your applications into process. Thank you.